And Rhett, we are recording, so go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. And thank you for everyone who took their time out of their schedule today to show up for this. I've been looking at last time we did this time, and a future reunification training that we're going to be hosting later on down next month. And the amount of people that have reached out, have participated, that have signed up is telling us, that, hey, obviously reunification is a hot topic button that needs to be addressed and talked about. So hopefully with this training today, you're going to pull out some extra tools and some skills from this that you can use to help build your reunification program at your school that you're using. If you have questions, just please throw them into the chats, and one of the Alex or Mitch or somebody will let me know, and we can answer that question as best as we can. But please feel free to ask questions and chat away with us. We're here to help you, and looking forward to working with you here. So we're going to start with this saying right here: recovery starts before the crisis begins. And I kind of sat there on that one a little bit, and I'm like, what's this really saying to me on recovery starts? And it's about, you got to have that recovery plan in place. You gotta know what tools you're going to need, where you're going to do it at, how you're going to do it. And that's all stuff that you do before the crisis. If we try to wait till the crisis, we're in real trouble at that point. And so through today, when we go through these slides and stuff, I'm hoping I can show you, things that you can do to help build your reunification plan before that crisis ever gets there. And let's cross our fingers and hope that that crisis never gets there to you. But if it does, we want to be prepared. So we're going to be looking at the who, the what, the when, and the how reunification. We're going to be showing you guys the three different levels of reunification. We're going to be showing you the 10 core components that make reunification works. And if you can use those 10 core components that are on these blueprints right here, you're going to find that you're checking off that list and you're following it to a T. And that's how you get your I's dotted and your T's crossed when you start following these 10 core components. So we're going to take this day to day, and we're going to look, or the next hour, we're going to look at reunification through a real world lens. We're not just what the plan says on paper, but what actually happens when we're at that point and we have to do a reunification. And what are we going to face when we're in that reunification? And that's that look through that real world lens is, we're going to have parents that are emotional. We're going to have traffic that's going to be backed up. We're going to have media that's present. And information is not fully complete yet. And these are some of the barriers we're going to run into through this. So again, by using the blueprint and by using this tips and best practices, I think you're going to be able to figure out, hey, how's this going to work for us best at our location? So let's start diving in and take a look at that. So first off, let's look at what the standard response protocol versus the standard response method is. So you can see there on the slide what it says, following through there. And then that recovery really does start before the crisis begins, because that decision, the system, and the relationship you build ahead of time is going to determine how fast, how safe, and how humane recovery will be afterward. One of the key things that we need to have in this to help make it work is confidence. We need the confidence before this event even happens. That's how comfortable we need to be with it. That's that practice, that drilling, an SRP that helps us start getting ready for SRM. So building that confidence and then showing the resilience after it. And how are we going to recover from this? And how are we going to rebound from this? And how are we going to bring everyone back in as a community? And I'm telling you, if your reunification runs smoothly, you're going to be able to start that healing process much, much quicker and faster with the community. And it's not that the community is going to be mad at us. It's just going to be, hey, the community is going to be also affected by this. So jumping into the whys and the whos, the reunification, let's look at this one, the first one. Reunification happens during emotionally charged moments. we know parents are going to be scared. And I've been lucky enough, well, maybe not lucky enough, but I've been part of something like this and had that firsthand experience to see what it was like for the parents. And the parents, yeah, they are scared. And I really put myself in their shoes and thought, yeah, I'd be nervous too if I had to go pick my kid up from an incident at a school and like wanting those answers. So the parents are going to be scared, and the staff, don't forget our staff. Our staff are going to be stressed. And then what's also going to be playing part of this is those rumors and how fast those rumors can spread. So on this why reunification matters, we're going to look at that normal dismissal procedures and how they can fail under pressure. So a normal dismissal on reunification is kind of set to fail the way it is. You got to have more balances and checks to get you through it. So reunification exists to protect these students from being released to the wrong person, to protect staff, to make sure that we're not getting the wrong person to the wrong place, and from improvising under stress. Because when we get stressful, that's what kind of starts happening. We kind of start pulling ideas from the pocket. And that's not the time to do this. You want to protect, you want to be able to know this well enough that you can also protect your district legally. Okay. Like having a smooth running reunification also helps protect legal issues that you might run into. Control doesn't slow things down. We're hoping that control, and actually control, it's not even hoping, that control needs to help prevent mistakes. So having total control over your reunification, again, is those checks and balances, is dotting those I's and crossing those T's and making sure that, hey, we're preventing mistakes as the best as we possibly could with this. Think of good intentions without process creates chaos. And that line kind of sticks out to me about the good intentions without process creates chaos. And it really does. I've seen lots of times where people have the best intentions to do something to help, and sometimes it makes it more chaotic. And in reunification, that's really what's going to happen. And don't forget, you're going to have people that are going to be jumping out of the woodworks all of a sudden to try to help. And you got to remember how, yeah, they want to be there to help, but if they're not trained, they're not part of that plan, it's more likely to create chaos than to help. When is reunification used? Initiating the reunification can be a result of anything abnormal at the school. That's going to render it unsafe to stay in, or something in the area such as a power or phone outage could create, like, hey, we can't really do much here at school. Or what about in a weather event, a snowstorm, a hazmat incident, a bomb threat, criminal activity down the road from you, or active violence at the school. In some cases, it may be only a partial student population reunification. For instance, a criminal activity in the area might result in reunifying students who walk to and from school. So I don't need my kids getting the bus ride, they're fine. I need to worry about this small population here that are walking home today. And how are we going to work this? So, you're going to have a little plan for that. In other incidents, reunification of the entire student population may be necessary for things such as a gas leak in the school or a violent event. I can see a gas leak being very probable type issue that you're going to be like, yeah, we need to remove the kids from this building and move them somewhere else to get them reunified. And I can think back at a time where our school district, there's several school districts that experienced this throughout the state of Oregon at the same time, but I know of a school district that had a roof collapse in one of their gyms. And they said, like, obviously, like, hey, we need to remove our students right now. There's a heavy snow out there, and one of our roofs just collapsed. And what they did, and I thought was very wise, was they sent their maintenance people out to immediately start inspecting roofs on all schools in their district. And they found that they had a couple that were heavily compromised. And they said, hey, okay, we're gonna be safe, and we're gonna move these kids. And so they looked at it and said, we don't need to do an offsite reunification, but we need to get these kids home to their families because we don't have a place for them today. So they're able to walk just across the street over to the elementary school and use their cafeteria. Parents were able to pull into the parking lot. They were able to verify who that parent was to that student, brought the student out to the parent in the car, get in the car, and they leave and they go on. And it was a very smooth, and it was a very safe, and it was a very organized reunification for something that was pretty simple to reunify on, is moving them. And they had that plan. If you don't have that plan for that, it's going to get real difficult. And imagine if it was an escalating event and it kept getting worse and you didn't have that plan for that. That's where you get yourself improvising. That's where you can get yourself in trouble. When is reunification not used though? Like we think about that and like what calls for reunification, what does not call reunification? Because right now, I can say the word unification, and most people are going to automatically have their brains go to the worst spot, which is, man, there was a massive violent incident at the school, and we're happy because that's what we've seen on the news, and that's what we kind of think. And so it's important to look at like times that we want to use it and times we don't want to use it. And a good time not to use reunification is to remember, hey, it's not a first come, first serve. It's not whatever parent, whoever gets there first, they get to get in line. We're not even going there with that. It's not a first come, first serve. It's not chaotic. And once you start this process, follow it exactly. I can't stress that enough. Follow it exactly. Skipping steps inside reunification is going to create unnecessary risk. Unnecessary risk that's hard to explain why it happened and why did you skip a step into it. So if you follow it exactly, goes back to that liability side too. It's going to help keep you safe also, and help with the liability and help keep staff members safe, keep students safe, keep parents safe, and also having that trust. That school that reunified through a roof damage, collapsed roof, I guarantee you they got a lot of trusted parents that day because they did it so quickly and smooth and safely. And they won points with their parents that day. So making sure that when we do this, we're not also turning it into a race, and we're not just saying like, hey, who gets to get here first and get their kid. So what is reunification? So reunification is used in a controlled process. It safely releases students to approved parents or guardians after an emergency. That is reunification, what it's used for. What it's not, again, it's not an early dismissal. It's not a free pickup, and it's not parents walking into campus. And that's an important one too. Is parents are going to want to come onto the campus and grab their kid right there, or try to come in through the building, come through the doors and stuff. And that's where it's really important again to have it organized, have it structured, have it run safe. Some of the things that are vitally important in reunification, if it is or it's not, doesn't matter. Every student needs to be accounted for, and every adult needs to be verified. Every release is documented, and that's getting back into that whole, hey, we're keeping our dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and we're keeping ourselves in that spot to reduce the liability. And so this reunification run correctly, again, it's going to really help with those bullet points over that you see. It's a controlled process. It's used after the incident. It releases students only to the approved adults, and it's fully documented. You follow those, you're great to go. What about school and first responders and their joint operations? So you can look there, and I like this one because it kind of breaks it down for each group, like what you're involved in, what is going to be your area. So for our schools, I mean, you can see like, hey, that's important stuff that you're going to have to run. That information. Law enforcement fire is not going to know that as well as it. That's where you're the expert, you're the professional, you're going to run that. In a reunification event, especially, under this SRM, just remember you don't have to do everything. It is broken up. They're like those bullet points on your side is your side. And that's our lane that we're going to stay in. And when we stay in that lane, the process runs really, really smoothly. It's safe. It's efficient. It's going to really, again, make that process go smoothly. You can see, hey, each spot there is almost like a lane that we're staying in. We're letting law enforcement do their stuff. We're letting fire medical do their stuff while we're doing our stuff. Another way to look at it is cops are going to own the crime. We're going to let them take care of that part. fire owns the flames and the victims, that whatever that thing is for the fire department that they need to do. And then the schools, again, the schools are going to own the kids. They have those kids, and the paramedics are going to own the patient. And the reason we threw that in there too is because when we're talking about that communication rule, and we'll go into it again later on in the slideshow here, but paramedics own the patient, right? Because if that patient's being transported, we need to make sure that we have in our reunification plan of how we're going to find out what students being transported and to where, so we can help properly get that information to that person's guardians. That's not for a share for all, that's not for everyone to know, but that is for us to know, to help communicate and keep our parents in the know where their student is. So let's take a second here and look at how this is going to work. Okay, it's reunification just follows the same high level flow. It's authorization, it's separation, it's verification, it's controlled release, it's documentation and demobilization. And again, if you notice, you'll see this a lot throughout today, is you're going to hear a lot about the word accountability, and you're going to hear a lot about don't skip the steps. And part of that not skipping the steps is keeping yourself accountable, also not to skip them. Accountability is going to be vital throughout reunification. It really becomes the backbone of how this works. If we keep each step accountable, we keep ourselves accountable, we keep parents accountable, we keep students accountable, we keep everyone accountable, this is going to work and run a lot smoother. And you're going to find where that accountability becomes really important in supporting you in this. Why do these levels matter? And we're getting ready to go into the level 1, 2, 3 reunification. And the whole hope of this is to make it much simpler for school districts to use, for them to be able to look at it and say, the word reunification isn't 0 to 100, but reunification can be level 1, level 2, level 3, and you're going to be able to figure out which one's best for that situation at that moment. It's one of the more important concepts that we're going to talk about. Think of how reunification levels are going to help bring order to the chaos. Again, the second time we start talking about reunification, there's probably some sort of chaos going on. These levels are going to also help us, reduce the improvisation. They set the expectations for families. It's going to set the expectation for the staff and the partners involved. When everybody knows that level, that confusion drops big time. And I know, like, for me as a parent, if I got a text message saying, hey, we're experiencing a level 1 reunification, it removes all the anxiety and the unknown for me right there. Lets me know where you're at, what you're doing, how you're doing it, as a parent. And I know for me, I'd be very appreciative of that. So let's take a deeper look into the reunification levels. So here's one for level 1. As you can see on the left side there, under level 1, the threat level, location, the ID, these are all nice little things that kind of help you follow along and say, hey, what is going to be level 1 and why is it going to be that way? So you can look at level 1 as a normal day with no safety threat. You guys reunify students every day. Every day, students come to you and go back home. And that's a form of reunification right there. So you're kind of in that level already, where you're already reunifying. But this is a case where you can say, hey, we need to do a weather early release today. It's snowing good, and we know the roads are going to get a little icy stuff. So we're going to release 2 hours early today. So the first step is we're going to start notifying parents and let them know what and why. And then we're, putting our plan in place. And do I need to go off-site to do a reunification of this? No, absolutely not. I can do this right from the school. I can keep the kids in where they're safe. I can wait until the school buses show up. I can wait until parents show up and start working it from there. You might want to check IDs if they're coming in to pick up their student. I would probably suggest that. But if you're putting them on the bus to go home, you're not going to need as much documentation. The documentation is going to be much lighter on a level 1. The pace is fast, and law enforcement doesn't even need to really be involved with this. If they want to come there and help out, great. always welcome. It's always nice to have a uniformed officer there. Um, People seem to behave a little better. But in this case, you don't need it. It's just a level one. This is getting kids home safely, um, due to whatever minor disruption that was for the school that day. Okay, level two, getting a little more serious, and this is broken into two slides on this one. Um, to be able to break it down, see it a little easier on this, but here it is. We're looking at the threat level. It's elevated, and we have, we can still do on-site. We don't need to go off-site yet, but we are going to have to start checking things a little closer. We are going to have to start dotting I's and crossing T's here. And part of that is, you know, the level two is going to help introduce separation and control. On this, don't forget too, on level two, it's important. This is where you want to start keeping parents and students separated, okay? You don't want parents just walking up and coming through the door and getting their kid and leaving. We're going to be checking IDs. Um, Forms are recommended, they're not required, but if you want to really document and know who, what, where, when, how, there's, forms are always a great way to do that. The staff, you're going to have your staff escort the students. This is when the concern is elevated, but the campus is still usable. So again, this can get into, we can look at examples over there. A medical emergency is always a great one, to look at too, because let's say if you have a science project going on and a noxious gas was created by accident and the students became very ill, and you're not going to want to put them on a bus, right? That's when we're going to be calling parents, if it doesn't call for emergency evacuation of like ambulance, things like that. But we're calling parents in, we're having them come pick up their student. We're going to want to check those IDs. We're going to, fill out those forms and make sure that we have really documented to help cover ourselves throughout this reunification. Okay, reunification level 3, which is critical. We're at a critical point now. This is going to be off-site. And this is where I really encourage everyone. I understand, like when I look at several schools out there, most schools I look at, they seem to have a reunification plan for on-site only. And they really aren't sure where their offsite will be, but they kind of have an idea where they might go or not go. This is the importance of building in an off-site reunification regardless. And just having it, even if it's just, if you're a small rural school and the best reunification place is a football field that is, you know, a quarter mile or so down the road from you, a big field that's going to work. That's going to be your offsite location. But you want to write this into your plan. You want to have that in your plan. You want anybody to be able to pick that up and look at it and say, yes, that's where the unification site is. But here's the important part of that too. Please, please do not share your offsite, your unification for everyone to know. You're going to have it in your plan, but don't be sharing that with everybody else. And it's because I've talked to schools that have, and they did have unification, and they were like, man, we got there and the parents, the media, everyone was there before us, and we weren't even ready. We couldn't get set up before we were getting bombarded. It was chaotic. We were talking about that chaotic, the accountability fell apart, and all because the offsite reunification was public and they knew, so everyone knew where it was. So when you're doing that, make sure, that's a side thought to think about it is like, hey, try to keep that confidential. Don't be sharing that out. This is going to, and again, we're in a full force reunification here. That IG, it's going to be strict. The forms use are going to be mandatory. You got to keep the pace slow, and you got to keep the parents away from the students. Here's some more look at it here. Um, Law enforcement is obviously going to be heavily involved in this. And this is going to happen because, the campus has become unsafe. It's no longer safe to have your students at your school. You need to remove them to get them back with families. And you want to make sure, again, every step is documented. Documentation, documentation, documentation. That's with IDs. That's with the little reunification cards, and you'll see an example here in the slide soon. And don't forget, this pace is intentionally slow. You know, I know when I first kind of jumped into this and I started learning about reunification, I was like, man, this is overwhelming. I don't know if I really want to learn all of this. There's a lot for me. And then I started thinking about how I would even do reunification. And I was really convinced that, it's about, hey, get them in, get them out, get them back with the parents, get them in the car, get them out here, let's go, and never really thought about an intentionally slow pace is a safe pace that's going to allow us that time to, again, keep the accountability in check. We're going to make sure we're always accountable. If we're continually accountable, we're going to be continually good at what we're doing here. All right, let's take a look at the 10 core components of reunification. I'll give you a second to kind of read through them for a second, and I'll start talking about them. These are our pillars of strength. These are what's going to make it very, if you follow these 10 steps right here, you're going to realize how simple you can make your reunification. So, you look at that first one, the authority to initiate, reunification must be an intentional command decision made with district leadership and first responders. The timing matters to avoid chaos and safety risks. So if you're getting to that point where it's time to reunify and you're looking to authorize to initiate that reunification, it's calling your game players in and getting it going. The ICS, the incident command structure, they're going to use this ICS role to keep operations organized. It helps us keep it very scalable and clearly coordinates between school staff and emergency agencies. And that's very important too, right there, is having that really cool, that really clear coordinated line of everyone coming together and working together. Site selection and setup, I think this is a really important one too, is, hey, I need to do this offsite reunification site. So I need to go pick out my site, but what site do I even want to begin to look at, So I hope this will kind of help with that, is looking for those locations that allowed traffic flow, it allows safe supervision, and it has clear separation of students and parents. So by going out and pre-planning this, it's going to reduce that confusion at that time. And it's going to let the parents kind of know where they need to be and how the process is going to work, where the students are going to be and how this process is going to work for them. And by doing this, it's also, coaching and developing them of what to do in the time of. Student accountability, which is just a massive one. This is going to be, you got to maintain real-time tracking of every student status and location. And this is so you can ensure no one is overlooked and families receive the accurate information. And I know I can do so many stories about all this stuff, but I do know where there's an incident where they did have reunification at an actual shooting at a school, and they didn't quite get every kid accounted for. And there's a couple of kids they couldn't find. And after about 3 or 4 hours, they actually found that the kids left and walked home. And they were actually over at another friend's house playing video games. And for some reason, they never told their parents what happened or where they were. So you can see where the confusion and the scare and everything else comes from that. And that's part of your accountability, student accountability, is, hey, do we have our students accounted for? Do we have them checked in here? If not, where are they? Let's find them. Parent verification, we're going to release students only to those authorized adults using ID procedures to protect and to make sure that our custody rights are not being violated, and to help cover that liability. Custody rights could be a big one you can get into. And this is, again, where it's important to encourage our parents, and I'll talk more about later on, but talking about our parents really keeping their information updated so we can get a hold of them at the time of. And I can see custody being an issue where a parent, rightfully so, is going to be upset and scared, and they want to get there and get their kid, but they don't have the custody rights to pick that child up. And we need to make sure that we follow that, and only the people that are allowed to pick that child up is picking them up. That kind of goes into the controlled release process, using a structured, documented flow with staff. Escorts to prevent crowding. It's going to prevent the wandering, and It's going to help us miss accountability. Like if we're missing some accountability, we're going to help pick it up here. Communication and messaging, again, absolutely vital. Provide clear, consistent directions to families about where to go and what to expect. And that's going to return help reduce that panic and that self-deployment of parents who are going to come out and try to do it themselves and take care of things themselves. By having that quick communication. And another part of that too is the thing about it is like when you send out that communication, and I think you'll see in another slide, so it kind of helps get us into our heads is that one message, but over several platforms. So all our social media stuff, it's always that same message, so there's no confusion. Safety and crowd management. Again, we picture in your head people showing up, and people are going to want to help, and media is going to show up, and it's important for us to plan for that heightened emotion, and again that traffic congestion and that security that's going to be needed with defined safety zones and law enforcement support. And that's where we're going to really work with our law enforcement and have them help set that up for us in the reunification plan. And so that's why it's important to bring them in on the planning process of it also. That documentation and legal records, record all reunification actions, support that accountability, make sure that liability we're protected. And also part of the post-incident review is going to be us going through that documents and legal records again, making sure we dotted I's, we cross T's. And then at the end there, the demobilization and after action, close the operation down in an organized way, and you're going to do that by accounting for your staff, for accounting for your equipment, and capturing lessons learned for future improvement to really come back and visit this later, and we're going to talk about a little bit later too, but it's like, hey, there's a quick one afterwards, where you're going to talk about what went well, what went bad, and then you're going to plan a deeper after action review in a couple of days where emotions have kind of let down a little bit. Okay, so who is going to be the authority to initiate? Reunification doesn't start accidentally. Someone has to authorize the activity, and who in the SRM model is going to do this? This decision is made intentionally. It's usually by a district leadership in coordination with the IC when normal disposal is no longer safe or appropriate. So you're looking at your district leadership at this point to help initiate that reunification, and having that in the plan, and also having the plan like, hey, if that district person isn't available, who's the next person that's going to help us with, initiating this reunification? So one of the key thoughts is, clear authority is going to help prevent confusion, and it's going to help with conflicting decisions by having that one clear designated person that's going to make that call. Here's a slide of the structure, how it can look for you. And I'll tell you guys, if this incident ever does come, you're going to be glad that you have this in a binder ready to go. When this structure takes over, in any reunification, especially the higher levels, we can't operate informally. We must operate within this system. And that system is ICS, and it's the incident command system, which is the incident command system. And if we follow that again, that accountability, we're gonna understand where we need to be and what our duty is for that person in that position. Site selection. Again, I was telling you about, hey, we're going to talk about some of this stuff in later slides. It needs to allow that control. It has to have separate zones, needs traffic flow, needs ADA access, and the space for staff and families and media to join. So you can see here, and I like this picture because, everyone's piling up outside here and they're standing out on the road and traffic is still running. I mean, the chance of a secondary incident is very high at this point, and that's going to extremely throw complications into our unification if we now have a victim out on a road that was hit by a vehicle or something like that. So if you look at the reunification site, in this site it shows, this is from I Love You Guys, which is a phenomenal one to go follow and get follow-up information from. This slide shows that full reunification site layout. The biggest thing to notice is everything is designed around controlled flow. we want people moving in one directions without these paths crossing over. And this is great because as you can see here, you got law enforcement, you got law enforcement over in the area with a bunch of parents, and they're way back on the right side. And they have several signs up that are going to help tell them, hey, you're at this phase of the reunification. This is what we need you to be ready for next. So they have the ID out, they know that's getting closer. And we have all the students coming in from a different area. Buses are bringing them in. They didn't come through the parents. They came in through a different location. We have law enforcement officers back there to help kind of protect the security of that. And then inside you have your station set up and the plan of how to get your kids out to the parents and having them exit out through a different building or part of the building. Student accountability and tracking. This is kind of where I get up in my soapbox a little bit because this is where I can see a lot of problems that happens at times. The accountability happens before reunification begins. And it continues until the last student is released. Don't forget these rosters need to move with these students while you're doing this, okay? And again, reunification begins and continues until the last student is released. Your daily attendance roster taken every period it has to be accurate and true. We can't be pencil whipping our attendance. It's going to fail you at some point, and I know it happens. I know we're busy. We got classes. We got stuff going on. We have to get to the next thing, and I really don't have time to take attendance. So I'm just going to draw a line through it and say, all are here. Everything's good, and pass it on down. And then you find out, oh, you know what? We had an incident, and we're looking for a couple students that are marked here that actually aren't here today. And that's where that attendance thing is going to really cause some issues if we're not keeping our attendance accountable. It's so easy to look over. It's one of those things that we do every day, so it's real easy to just kind of pass it off to the side. But accountability and liability really goes together, and especially when you're talking about the attendance part of it. Attendance has to be accurate, and it has to be updated regularly throughout the day, so you know where people are and you know how many students you're going to need to reunify. Parent guardian verification, another one. Hey, again, we're going to check those IDs. We're going to make sure that we are getting the right person with the right student. Verify this against school records and document it every single time. Communicating with parents throughout the school year to update their contact information will be vital to reunification. It really is. I don't know how many times I can talk to people at regular school and they're like, yeah, it's so frustrating. And I know I dealt with this too when I worked for the schools. I've tried to call a parent and that number is not good. And all the other numbers they gave us aren't good. And when you do finally get a hold of them, they're like, yeah, we really don't want to talk to you guys because you just bombard us with phone calls all day long with everything. But this is that part where it's really good to explain to the parents, especially in the beginning of the school year. And especially when parents say, what can I do to help keep my kids safe? This is it right here. This is the one. If parents want to know how to keep their kids safe at school, it's them having their information updated so that we can quickly get a hold of them and get them if we need them. We need to make sure that we explain the why and the when we're communicating with parents. Let them know this is for emergency purpose, and this is going to allow to quickly be able to contact a parent in an event and an emergency. I think if most parents hear that, they're going to say that's that moment where they step back and they kind of weigh my child's safety versus me not wanting a phone call in the evening about my student's attendance. I think I'm going to go with my child's safety. And I know I would in a heartbeat. I will gladly take that phone call about my child's attendance to make sure that you can get a hold of me in an emergency. Controlled student release. So while we're going through this is the point where everything comes together, guys. When all this planning and this practicing that you've been doing, this is where it really starts coming together. And this is also at the same time where things can go wrong very, very quickly if we lose control. So this is one of those very vital points. Like we're to that point where like, okay, we're ready to start putting, but we have to make sure we don't miss something here. And that controlled student release is about that. It's about that safety. It's about that accountability. It's about that documentation. And if you follow the rule of one student at a time, siblings are okay to move more than one at a time, but don't move the kid and his best buddy that the mom said, oh, they sent me here to pick him up. No, we can't do that. We're going to move that student one at a time. We're going to do it under staff escort, and we're going to have identity confirmed. And that documentation is going to be completed before that student's even released to that parent. Again, you guys heard me talk about this a little earlier when we were talking about communications and messaging. The number one in this is do not share your offsite reunification area. Okay, don't share that location. Um, that's the one. I'm sure people are going to ask for it and just say, hey, that is kept confidential at this time until further notice. When communication is clear, though, on everything else, things are going to calm down. It's funny how, when I've dealt with parents that are really riled up until I was able to give them some more information and get them to kind of de-escalate down that way. But when the communication is not clear, that leaves the door wide open for rumors. It's going to leave it wide open for confusion. And when frustration takes over, it takes over fast and it gets out of control real quick. Don't forget, you guys, one message, many platforms. Pick out that one spokesperson for your group, and they're going to give clear instructions, and they're going to help reduce anxiety and rumors while also putting those rumors to rest and getting people there safely to reunify with their child. Safety and security, crowd management. Yeah, security. We're going to need it. The security is going to support the reunification. It doesn't replace it, but it supports it. And that's going to help with keeping parents remain separated until verification is completed. So that's where our law enforcement, your campus monitors, any security personnel you might contract with, that would come in and help with this. Don't forget, we're not just managing a process, we're managing people under stress. And managing people under stress is extremely difficult. It's emotionally, it's tough, but operationally, it's very critical. We're going to have to make sure we do this. And I know parents are going to kind of get upset and start, but hey, we're going to make sure we keep control and we don't lose things. Okay, documentation, like I was telling you, we'd have an example here for you. Here's one, you can get this from I Love You Guys on this card right here. And just think of this, especially for our smaller schools, where we know every single person and they all know us. You have to remember this, though. If it is not documented, it did not happen. These records are going to matter a lot longer after that incident ends. Like these records, if anything legal comes up, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that gets subpoenaed to court, and discovery. These are the things that, are going to really help that liability part of it. And by following it regardless, even though that person says, come on, Miss Smith, you know who I am. I had you as a teacher also. Now you have my sorry, we're going to dot I's and cross T's and just, explain to them, I'm sorry, but I'm doing this so that way everybody's treated the same on this one. One of the most important part of reunification ID is that documentation part of it. At the end of the day, again, remember, you guys, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. Demobilization afterwards, so the incident's done and we're getting to that point where we're ready to start, closing this down, which is good news because that means we're getting close to the end of this presentation and you guys can get back to your normal day. But on this, on demobilization, think of it as it's absolutely intentional, and part of that demobilization is getting our staff to sign out also. We need to be accountable for our staff and make sure they're taken care of and they're accounted for, and we get them signed out as they leave. We're going to want to do a quick hot wash right afterwards with the immediate players. And that hot wash part is just, going in there and talking about, hey, what are things we noticed? Did we get things on no paper? Did we do this? Did we do that? Did we check this? And going through and doing that final checks and balances part of it. And then talking about kind of like, hey, what do we want to get on for that big after action, and that after action review is that next response. And that's going to really help you develop and keep building off of this. The IC incident commander is going to approve when you start scaling down. Okay, so remember at the end of it, it's not just pack it up and go home like the end of a football game, but we're going to scale it down in stages as we're taking it down. And then don't forget, at this point, we're at the finish line. The finish line is right there. It's super close. We just have to cross it, right? Make sure you have that control to the end. If you have that control of accountability at the finish line, that means you didn't lose the accountability throughout the process. That means you dotted I's, you crossed T's. That means you followed those 10 core components. That means staff were well trained and they understood what was going on. Community partners, law enforcement officers, whoever else is involved in that. That means everybody was in on the game plan and had they had a fingerprint on the plan coming together to make this work. So if you have everything taken care of, accountability at the end, why it's a horrible, stressful day, I sure hope you take the moment to pat yourself on the back and realize you just completed something that is extremely emotional and extremely taxing on you. But hey, you know, we're here and we want to know this and we want to make sure we know it well enough so that we feel very comfortable during that time. So let's go on to this. We've got through all these slides. Let's look at some questions, okay? So here's question one. Who's primarily responsible for running the reunification process? So just go ahead and put your letter in the chat, whatever it is, and I'll give it a few seconds, then I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so question one, who is primarily responsible for running the reunification process? I hope you answered C. C, it's going to be you guys, the school districts, and maybe it's the principal at a small rural school, or it's a director of safety from a district. How about question two? Which group verifies custody and releases students? Who's going to do that? All right, if you answered C on that one, hey, you're 2 for 2 and you are doing great. That means that you listened and you are learning something today. Going on to question three. What example incident would trigger a level 3 unification? Okay, again, if you answer C on this one, you're 3 for 3. And that means you understand reunification pretty well and you're getting ready for it. You're like, yeah, I can do this. And question four, our last question here. When does student accountability stop? And again, if you answer C, you're 4 for 4, you're 100%, and you're allowed to give yourself a gold star. Actually, you should give yourself the employee of the month and hang it on your wall in your office. Great job on that. And let's see what we got left here. Little something for you guys. We don't just respond. We're going to learn, we're going to adjust, and we're going to improve every time from this. Take that, really run with that. You can use that for everything, right? You can use that for literally anything you do throughout your school. We're not just going to respond to it. We're going to learn from it. We're going to adjust and we're going to improve from it. And if you guys are looking for more information on this, here's our regional areas that we cover, the whole state, but each person has a region. You scan that QR code and you can see who's in your area and region that you can reach out and contact. Again, this reunification, we also have a 8-hour in-person class that we perform. If you guys or your districts or anything interested in that, reach out to us. We can come out to you. Our focus is trying to keep a no-cost, low-cost trainings for districts throughout the state of Oregon, and we're more excited to come out and train this. We have several other trainings available also, like standard response protocol, stop the bleed, PEEPs. We have several people on our team that have all been trained up in the area to specifically come out and instruct that to your districts if you need it. So thank you guys. That concludes my slideshow, and I will turn it back over to Alex at this time. Thanks for being out here, you guys. I really appreciate it.